Hi, this is Jeff Ryan. Welcome to Tales from the Cabin. This week I'm really excited to bring you a story of a woman who hiked the Appalachian Trail at a time when hardly anyone was hiking it. In fact, Grandma Gatewood would be one of the first to hike the Appalachian Trail end to end. She was the second woman to do it. She was the first woman to do it multiple times. She did 2 through hikes and then went back and did some section hiking until she completed it a 3rd time. And after that, if that weren't amazing enough, she did a hike from Independence, Missouri to Oregon on the Oregon Trail, following the steps of the pioneers and the pioneer women, more to the point, who traveled along with the Conestoga wagons as they headed out west. Quite an amazing woman. Grandma Gatewood was from Ohio. She had 11 children, and she had an abusive husband. They were divorced, fortunately for her, and when most of her children were adults, there were still 3 living at home, but old enough to take care of themselves. So Grandma Gatewood announced to them that she was going for a walk. At this time, she was 67 years old. It was 1955, and they had no idea what she was taking on. The year before, she had attempted to hike south from Katahdin and not gotten very far. And the rangers helped her get out of the woods there and urged her to go back home. She only came back from that with more resolve. And the following year, as I mentioned, in 1955 was when she announced to her children that she was going for a walk. They had no idea that she was doing the trail. She started in Georgia and went all the way to Maine. She traveled incredibly lightly. She knew of woods and foraging, so that was a plus. She had a hiking stick and a denim bag that she cobbled together herself. It was lined with a piece of shower curtain to keep her dry goods dry. But other than that, it was very little that she was carrying other than that and a journal. She would heat rocks at night in a fire to help keep herself warm at night, and made her way up. By the time she got to Virginia, she'd become somewhat of a legend locally, and there was an article about her in the Roanoke Times, which is the first mention of her, public mention of her. And then by the time she got to Maryland, the story had been growing, and newspaper reporters were meeting her in different towns and at the trailhead. So it was one of those Maryland articles that made it back to Ohio, and her children first discovered that she was on the trail. They had no idea. So there's a lot of information about Grandma Gatewood, just an amazing person. And there's a tremendous book written about her called Grandma Gatewood's Walk by Ben Montgomery, which came out a couple of years ago. So if you want to learn more about her, there's that book. There's a website, grandmagatewood.com, which is mentioned in the following interview. And there's a lot going on to keep Grandma Gatewood's legacy alive. Today I'm pleased to introduce a special guest who's talking about a new initiative to have the celebration of Grandma Gatewood take on a new dimension. So I hope you enjoy this episode of Tales from the Cabin. As always, if you'd like to support my work, please check out my books at jeffryanauthor.com. Subscribe to this channel if you're on YouTube, or to my podcasts. And also, you could buy me a cup of coffee if you prefer at buymeacoffee.com/Jeffrey Ryan. Thanks again for joining me on this episode, and we'll see you soon. Hi, this is Jeff Ryan. Welcome to Tales from the Cabin, my weekly podcast, and I'm delighted today to have a very special guest, Bridgette Mongeon, an incredible sculptor from Houston, Texas way, and she's working on a very special project that relates to the Appalachian Trail. And without further ado, welcome to the show.
Hi, it's so good to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
So give a brief background, if you will, of your sculpture work to date. It's just fascinating to me, this niche that you've found and the exceptional quality of the work that you're doing. It's wonderful.
Wow, thank you. I get to celebrate people's lives. I get to research history in what I do because I'm a portrait and figurative sculptor. And when I say that, I'm a commissioned artist. So I'm not a person, an artist that goes into the studio and creates something and wants to sell it. People come to me with a commission and say, can you do, for example, Booker T? And then for 3 years, everything's Booker T, and I'm researching Booker T, and I'm sculpting Booker T, and so throughout my life, I've had the opportunity of not only delving into deep into history of people, but also celebrating lives lived. And it's been a really wonderful career.
Yeah, I'm so impressed in seeing how you interpret a person's life in clay and ultimately in bronze. And that immersive piece of it is so much like, to me, an exceptional actor in that they, in order to really assume the personality of who they're representing, it really takes a deep dive. And it's not just, in your case, it's not just reading, but you ask people to share visual effects, photography, but also even things like clothing, which I find really fascinating.
It's clothing, it's stories. I wrote a book, one of those ones that I've got on my shelf that's not published yet, called Bringing to Life the Spirit of the Deceased. And I tried to document how I do this because I capture an essence of person, not just a likeness, but an essence of a person. And it was actually part of my study in college. It was like, how do I find the essence of someone that I've never known? It's really a very interesting experience, and it was really fascinating to document what goes through my life and in my experiences when I do them.
Yeah, and the other thing I wanted to mention is I think it's astounding the way that your work is so interactive and it um, yeah, having grown up in an environment where we would go into museums and look at sculptures that represented someone, and they were very sort of staid and very stiff and foreboding to a degree. And what I find really wonderful about your work is how interactive, how it makes you want to interact and view from different angles.
I try to bring the audience in, and I do that in a lot of different ways. And I really don't want my pieces to be raised on a pedestal and nobody can touch them. I'd prefer they're at ground level where people can interact with them. The first one that you talked about was the monumental sculpture of Alice in Wonderland's Mad Hatter Tea Party, which is probably my magnum opus right now. 15-foot characters, a 10-foot table. You can bring your lunch. There's 150 things hidden inside of the sculpture. So I try to add more than just the sculpture. Even with that one, I talk about digital technology with that. I try to create an educational thing around it. I talk to students about literature and technology and sculpture. So it's not just the art.
Well, let's step through the looking glass onto the Appalachian Trail, as it were, and talk about how you got involved in this wonderful project and what your perspective is on the subject. Without
Ooh, thanks for asking. Well, I think you almost know that you have to know that I'm a hiker and I'm a female hiker. Um, and so the soul of Grandma Gatewood has affected all of us as hikers, many of us as hikers. I think especially women. And I'm of the age that, Grandma Gatewood was when she was hiking. And so um, that also appeals to me. I think and I'm not just a hiker, I started in 2016, started going hiking on my own, and my daughter would say, "Mom, you can't hike on your own because if you do, you could die." And I would say, "I'm going in. This is when I'm coming out. Here's my GPS." And she'd say, "Oh, great. I know where to send them to find the body. Have fun. Text me when you get out." And then one day she said, "Mom, you got to start a group." So I did in this big city of Houston, Texas. And now it's up to 17,500 women.
Oh my gosh.
It's just amazing. And Houston's very big, so we're not all hiking at one time, but and they're not just all hiking here. They go to Kilimanjaro, they go to Colorado, they go to the Appalachian Trail, but they also hike here. And what I saw with these women is that women were helping women on the trail. They would, you'd think of it as reaching back, let me help you up this step, but it was also emotionally and physically, no matter what was going on, people were helping each other, and the women they were creating such a bond. And I think of that when I think of Grandma Gatewood, because I think that she was so influential, and what she did help so many people, and in such a loving way. She was following her own path. She was hiking her own hike in life, but she was making a difference. And she was very profound to me. So I thought somebody's got to do a sculpture of her. And when I searched around, I found Paul at the cemetery in Ohio, who was thinking the exact same thoughts. And I said, can I do this? Can I be a part of this? And can I be a part of the fundraising team? And can I help you? And let's make this happen. And he said, oh, yes, let's do this. So he wanted to commission me to do one for her cemetery plot. He said people would come and they would try to find Grandma Gatewood. And I guess, as far as I know, it's one of those cemeteries where they all have flat plots. There's not any sculpture. So she will be the only sculpture in the cemetery. And he says, I just wanted to do something to recognize her. And when I came on, I said, Paul, I'd like to do it, but she's got to go back to the AT. Could we do two? I could sculpt one, we can cast two, we can raise funds for two. Let's get her back to the AT, somewhere near the trail. And he said, sure, let's do that.
Great.
So that is the process that we're in now. I've got original clothes or period clothes that she would wear. I've been talking to her great granddaughter, her granddaughter, and that connection with family is really important for that emotional thing. But I think that the connection to all the hikers who loved her, to hear the stories and how they affected them or her or him in their lives, that also brings in the emotional element of it. So I want to hear your stories, guys. And she's evergreen. I mean, she's playing a role with kids of 6 years old now, as well as people who are 64 or 70 or whatever. So yes, we're in the fundraising process of it. We have to raise $200,000 for two sculptures, which include sculpting, casting, sending a sculpture to two locations, one of which we don't know where it is yet. Installation, a plaque. And that's the thing. We don't know where she's going to go on the AT. If you're listening and you have a suggestion, we have two different locations that are looking and thinking and trying to get approval, which I can't reveal right now. There is, because it is state or national park, there's this Appalachian corridor, which is sacred land. So we have to often get permission from higher ups. And that's not my job. That's the people that are on the other end of this to do.
Right.
So hopefully they'll get that permission quickly, and then we can divulge where she's going to go. The other thing about the sculpture is everybody's so used to seeing these photographed images of Grandma Gatewood with her satchel over her shoulder, just standing with her hiking stick. She just had a satchel with a shower curtain, and she hiked in sneakers. She didn't have any special gear, just had a stick. But the thing about the pose that you mostly see her in, I have really strong emotional feelings about it, because it was what she did for press or individuals. Sure, I'll pose for you. Turned, posed. But you can imagine if you're in that headspace of hiking and always having people want to take pictures of you, it's very disruptive. So although it's what everybody sees, it's not what I want to capture in Grandma Gatewood.
Right.
I'm trying to do her kind of like hiking up a berm, and that feeling where you just stop for a moment and you go, oh, wow, that's why I'm doing this, and she's just kind of looking out like, whoa, it's a trail magic moment for her. And that's what I'm trying to do. And if we create it just right, and it is on a berm and there's rocks around it, then people can be hiking behind her. And
Well, right. And to me, the special gear that Grandma Gatewood had was perseverance. I mean, if you look at what she was, and I won't say escaping from, because I think what she was escaping to is a better place in her head, a better mental health. For those who don't know the backstory, she was in a horribly abusive relationship and raised, what was it, 11 children?
11
And
children.
and the first time she did the Appalachian Trail, there were 3 children left in the household, and she told them she was going for a hike, and ended up doing well. The first time was she went to Katahdin and started south and didn't make it very far, and went home. And the the next year she tried again, and that's when she did her first through hike. But suffice to say that she ended up doing not one but 2 through hikes, and also years later a section hike. So she did the Appalachian Trail 3 times, and she also did the Oregon Trail, and had a cumulative mileage total of over 14,000 miles. So she was one woman fueled by perseverance, but I think she also found, as many people have found on the trail, a place of equilibrium and positive mental health, and just being able to detoxify, if you will. Benton Mackay, the guy who came up with the idea for the trail, had found solace in nature because his father died when he was 14, and he was horribly depressed. And the woods and hills of then rural Massachusetts were the place that healed him. So he always had this idea that the trail would bring this component. So I think it's really fascinating and fitting that Grandma Gatewood found the same.
And when you think about it, if you do some research on it, science has proven that being in the woods can make you healthy, can encourage your health, can do mental health and physical health. And just a little bit more of my story. And then I started the group in 2016. In 2017, I got very ill. And in 2018, January, I was diagnosed with lung disease and given 2 years to live.
Mm.
And so I just kept hiking. I would put my oxygen concentrator on and the cannula up my nose, and I'd say, okay, anybody want to go hiking? And what's your limitations? So I know. And everybody would look at me and go, I don't have any limitations. You can hike with oxygen. I don't have it. So I think being in the woods continues to heal me. And I think that's very important for everybody to think about and to know that, because if you're sitting in your house and you're going, I don't really want to get out. But if you get out there and you do it, it's going to change who you are. I think the other important element is, and that's why she's been so important to me, one of the dysfunction in the relationship with her husband. We have so many women in Houston Women Hiking who've come from abuse. So and try to find that solace and that healing in the woods. And I think I was doing it as well, not just physical healing. I was coming off a divorce and trying to figure out who I was. But Grandma did this at the age of 64.
Right.
In 57. Does like can anybody comprehend that a woman would do this at that age in that time period when there was so much stigma? It was like women's movement wasn't even beginning yet. And that was just amazing to me. So she just has all sorts of things to look up to, and I'm just so honored to be able to do a sculpture of her. It's a long process. Matter of fact, people ask me how long this would take. If we had all the money tomorrow, which we don't, so please, GoFundMe, send your dollars. Even $1 will help. Or if you know a corporate sponsor, and share it, because that's really important, But if we had all the money tomorrow, it'd probably take 12 to 14, 16 months to do the whole process. That's how long it takes, about 3 or 4 months for me to finish the sculpting of the large one, going to the foundry, etc. And you have to fit into their schedule. So that's what we're looking at. But again, if people are interested, there's a GoFundMe. If you want to be a corporate sponsor, you can be a corporate sponsor, and we can take larger donations. We're working out some details where your name will be on a plaque with the sculpture. And so let's make this happen. I mean, we could do it. And here's another interesting thing. The amount of female sculptures of women around the world is minute. And I didn't realize this until I started to write my memoir, because I was in the hospital before my diagnosis, and then got the diagnosis, and then I got a sculpture of Eve as an Adam and Eve. And then right after that, or while that one was there, I got to do Penny Marshall, if you know who Penny Marshall is.
Oh, wow. That's great.
And I got to go to the Baseball Hall of Fame with all of the leftover original players from who that movie was made of, A League of Their Own. And then after that, I was doing Norma Centeno, who is a Latin jazz singer here in Houston. And so it was like bump, 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 bump. And it was really, for me, it was very empowering after coming off of the illness and all that transpired. It was very empowering. So I feel regenerated with Grandma Gatewood. Like that's happening all over again. And I love the idea of Grandma Gatewood inspiring women and inspiring girls. And I think that is a connection that she and I share, that I have learned a long time ago, that the single most important thing in my life, one would think, oh, it's your sculpting or it's your writing or it's whatever, is to being able to help as many people along the way as I can. And that's why I write, and that's why I sculpt. That's why I do what I do. And that's generational. You can pass that on to other people. My daughter, who is co-admin with me, she also is a writer, and she wrote 2 trail books that you could use they're on Amazon. And she does this with me. But then I've got a granddaughter, and she's into the woods. And then she just wrote her first book. You could appreciate this at 11 years old.
Wow.
It's coming out in the fall. See You in the Woods, Fun Activities for Kids. So I think that inspiring generations and families. When Chris and I and Isa were at a book signing event, and my book, by the way, is One Foot in Front of the Other: Art, Hiking, and Healing. And we were at a book signing event, and there was a man there, and he had 3 little girls. And Christina my daughter hands him a Texas State Park art. We have a lot of state parks. Texas is huge. We got 82 state parks. And he just looked at her, and you could see it. It went, I could take my little girls camping.
Yeah.
And he hadn't thought about those possibilities because he had girls until that moment. And so it continues. You continue to inspire families and children, the women and the husbands who have all those little girls. And I think
that's so true. I mean, yeah. I think the gift of sharing the joy of hiking and being in the woods is critical on so many levels. It's not just on a personal level, but on a cultural level. That connection is what makes people care, and makes them care about other people, and it makes them care about nature. And boy, you can't do any better than that in terms of legacy.
And I think that synergy that happens, I don't know how to describe this. Maybe you can help me. I think that synergy that happens is what causes trail magic to happen automatically.
Yes.
Because I see trail magic in Houston women hiking, and we're not talking about a trail angel who may just bring water to somebody when they need it. We're talking about 2 people that don't know each other, that come together, that have a need and meet that need. I don't know how else to describe it, but it happens. And I've come to the point where I just expect trail magic to happen in my life. It's not just on the trail; it's in my life. It happens.
Yep.
And I think that bringing the people together inside the woods and introducing them to camping, there's something there that's profound, just very profound.
Yeah, and it also, I think the other profound part of it is that you carry that forward when you're back in quote unquote civilization. Mm-hmm. You have the feeling of and I won't say expectation of, but there's you're going through life in a much more positive frame when you understand or kind of expect good things to happen or other people to be good.
It is very healthy, and I'm so glad that I hope all hikers know it. Don't they know it? We all know it, right?
Yeah,
We all know it, that it's there. People can find me at creativesculpture.com. That's sculpture.com. Go there and take a look at my artwork. And you can follow along on the progress at the grandmagatewood.com. That's the official site. The producers of the movie gave us the rights to use the website to be able to document. And so as I start to sculpt, I'll be it'll kind of be like you get to watch over my shoulder and see how we're doing. Thank you so much for having me and for spreading the word about Grandma Gatewood and the statue project. We're just delighted.
great. Thank you. We'll be in touch, and I will definitely be checking out the progress. It'll be fun to see, and hopefully you'll find a home near the trail for Grandma Gatewood.
Thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you next week on Tales from the Cabin.